Robert asked me out on a date. Time for a coffee break. Time for a coffee break. Good morning and welcome to a homespun house. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today while I chat about all things knitting. Cheers to a lovely start of your day. It's the start of my day. It's morning here in Germany. I'm drinking out of one of my favorite mugs. This is made by Staircase Ceramics. I have quite a few from her and I definitely would like to collect even more. They are absolutely gorgeous. And I think she's from Ohio in America. I'm not sure exactly the state, but I absolutely love everything she makes for all seasons. So cheers, grab something warm, whether it's a coffee, tea, water, something bubbly, your favorite drink, something cozy to work on, and sit back and relax while we chat about all things knitting. I have been working on a new cast on, and I'm going to share that with you guys right away because I wore my Sold Out in a Crop by Caitlin Hunter, which is designed as a crop top and it's also short sleeves. Mine is not any of those things. I decided to do it long sleeves with just a straight arm, kind of like a balloon sleeve, but not. Mine's really stretched out, so I wouldn't even say it's a balloon sleeve anymore. And the reason I decided to wear this is because I cast on a second Sold Out in a Crop for my mom. My parents came to visit us in April of this year, and I chose some different designs and yarns with my parents. My dad chose a shawl and a hat, and my mom chose a sweater. And this is the sweater that she wanted. I wore this quite a bit when they visited us, and it's just such a lovely design. It's a very fun knit, and the color work could not be more simple for a beginner, I would say. Now, I've been knitting color work for a very long time. I haven't really knit a lot of color work over the last few years, but when I first started knitting, the majority of the things that I knit were color work or intarsia. So it's really fun to kind of get back into it the last couple of years, whether it's been mittens, socks, little ornaments, or a sweater. Like I knit this one. And the thing that I love so much about this is pretty much most of the rows of color work there are stitches consisting of 1 to 3 stitches between strands of color work, between each strand of color. So that's really nice. It makes it very simple. You don't have to catch your floats. In fact, I never caught my floats throughout this entire knit. There are some sections in this pattern where I know some people would definitely cringe and say, no, how didn't you catch that float? Because there are a few sections where there are 5 stitches in between. And then I think there's one row where there's somewhere between 5 and 8 stitches in between. And I think that row I may have caught my float. It would have been the only row that I would have if it was over 5 stitches. So my sweater is knit in our Double Dare colorway. This is the pink. And then this really pretty periwinkle color is our wildflower colorway. And of course it is on our non-superwash yarn. I've worn this a ton, so it just is a lot more dull than a superwash yarn. That's just how a lot of colors dye up on, and especially speckled colorways, I would say much more than tonals. This mustardy yellow is our marigold colorway. And then this cream color is our fresh sheets. My mom chose hopscotch. Avada Kedavra is this green colorway that you can't see too much of, but that will be the main color of her sweater. And then she also chose fresh sheets. And then this gray toned navy we have here is steel. So I think this is going to be a really gorgeous pullover. I have Avada Kedavra this time, so let me grab it. This is the way Avada Kedavra looks on our non-superwash base, which means that it's definitely duller than it will look in person. But I think this is just going to be such a pretty main color for this piece. And it is so much fun to knit. I just cast this on 2 days ago and I have not done a lot of knitting on it. Or else maybe that's just how it feels because I've been enjoying knitting it so much. So I knit quite a bit of a looser gauge, and so I decided to go down 0.25 of needles. So I used a 3mm instead of a 3.25 for the neck, and then I used a 3.5 instead of a 3.75 for the body. And I like the gauge that I'm getting quite a lot for this. I'm using our non-superwash DK. I use that for both of these sweaters, and I knit a medium for myself. It's very, very oversized. And then I'm knitting a medium for my mom as well. So I know she's going to love this and I can't wait to get it to her because our non-superwash DK is next to the Skin Soft. I don't have a thing underneath of this sweater and it doesn't feel scratchy. It just feels like I am wrapped in butter without it being greasy and disgusting. So this is a lot of fun. I can't wait to work on this in the evenings. That's when I've really been enjoying working on this. During the workday, I usually take a few moments to knit on something, and it's not generally been this. Now, granted, I just cast this on 2 days ago, so I could see that I could treat myself to an hour's worth of color work knitting and work on this for a little bit. Because as I said, it is a lot of fun. And I know my mom's going to like it, so that makes it just so much more fun to knit on. The next item that I've been working on is a hat for my dad. This is the head sock hat pattern. I have the cutest Harry Potter like Halloween treats pail here filled with chocolate frog, Birdie Bots, every flavored beans. I love these. These will be in some kits very soon, probably on Thursday or Friday. I can't wait for you guys to see them because they are going to be so good. So I'm knitting on that hat for my dad. I'm at the decreases and this could be finished in an evening. I love it. I love that it goes with the shawl that I knit him and it's really light, just like he hoped for, while still being warm. So I'm also curious how he's going to wear this, whether he'll fold up the brim a little or just leave it with a little bit of slouch. That's what I'm guessing. So this is a 2x2 rib, which doesn't bother me at all. Knitting endless 2x2 rib. It's quite fun, quite relaxing. I'm a person who doesn't get bothered at all by purling. So knitting in rib is great. And it makes me think of my grandma because she did a lot of purling in her knitting. She did lots of rib wrist warmers, socks that were fully ribbed, and she never minded purling. My grandma belonged to the Knitters Guild for a very long time, and one time Elizabeth Zimmerman came into the Knitters Guild and she was giving a speech, and my grandma was sitting in the front row and she stopped her speech and said, "Hey, you've been catching my eye how you've been purling there. Please chat with me after the show. I need you to show me how you're doing your purl stitches." Because my grandma does her purl stitches. I don't even know what technique it is, where it comes from. There's so many people who know all the different knitting styles, Norwegian knitting, Danish knitting, everything. And I just learned to knit from my grandma, and the way that we knit and purl, you don't even need to move your fingers, really. I mean, you obviously have to move your fingers, but the way that we knit and purl, there's no like wrapping, or it's just very minimal movement. So my grandma hung out with Elizabeth Zimmerman a little bit after her presentation and everything, and taught her how she purls. So I would love to know if Elizabeth Zimmerman then continued or tried to purl how my grandma taught her, or if it was just too cumbersome, which is also kind of understandable. Because once you've been knitting for a long time, it's really difficult to change the way that you've been knitting into a way that, just to learn. You just want to knit and enjoy and relax. And yes, we learn new techniques, but changing our complete style of knitting, especially something like a knit stitch or a purl stitch, is pretty much 50% of our knitting, do you know? So yeah, that project is very Grandma Sue. I don't know, just reminds me of her. So that one's a lot of fun. And the next 3 projects that I'm knitting on are socks. I think you've seen 2 of them before. This first one is our Practical Magic sock set. This is a sock set that's in the shop right now. I knit Flax Light, Rye Light. I really don't remember what the pattern's called. I know this happened to me last time as well. It's a Tin Can Knits pattern. And this is that pop of color that Kay from Crazy Sock Lady really brought in the front of my mind. And I just love it. I always think also of my grandma when I knit this, because she always did that pop of color too, just like Kay. And I wanted to bring on some of the socks and things that I have from her that she's knit with some fun little pops of color like this. Especially her wrist warmers. That's where I can really, and socks, really remember, or hand warmers, her pops of color. So this one I did 5 rows, decided it was way too much. And then I did the toe contrast. So that one I think was finished last time. And I maybe just started this sock, or had I cast it on? I don't know. But anyway, I am finished with the leg, and I have just started the heel of this sock. It is so much fun. I love this pattern. I think it's one that I maybe will cast on for my next pair of socks, just because it's so cozy looking and feeling. And it works really nicely with more variegated yarn, because sometimes textures can get lost in variegated yarns, and this pattern definitely doesn't lose texture. So the next pair of socks that I am working on are my pumpkin spice socks. This for me is the perfect orange autumnal sock. And Tanya, a friend of mine, had mentioned that our Teddy colorway, which is what this tonal is actually called, just looks like a little latte. So pumpkin spice with a little latte. I think that's so perfect. I didn't even think about that. Of course, one of my friends, and she's also a customer, that's how I met her, just to be a genius like that and come up with that. Tanya is also very clever. So this is just a plain stockinette stitch sock. I did 56 stitches for all of these socks on a 2.25 millimeter needle. I cast on the second sock. And I also did that pop of color again. And for this one, I did 2 rows. I'm pretty sure that's what Kay does for hers. And I don't know where I am here. I'm very possibly at the toe decreases. I'm not sure. But this one is, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And we have all of these colors in sock sets in the shop. You can see our Practical Magic one, the one that I just shared with you. And we have them all in 100 gram skeins. I'm pointing over here because this is where my yarn wall is, over here with all of my 100 gram skeins of yarn, which I'm really, really trying to stock. I've been trying for years. You guys are just too amazing. So I thank you so much for all of your endless support. It means a lot. So the next sock is the new sock set that we have in the shop that I think is one of my favorite just overall Halloween combinations. I think it is my favorite. So we have this cuff here with the pop of color that I knit on double pointed needles. And as soon as I cast it on, I realized, oh, it's pooling in a way that I don't like. I did not dye this yarn intended to pool. You can dye yarn so that it pools, and you can dye yarn so that it's not pooling. However, pretty much any yarn, tonals included, can pool at a specific gauge, and that changes from person to person. So I didn't like that. I knitted on a 2.25 like my other socks on double pointed needles. And so I thought, okay, I need to change something. I either need to change the stitch count or I need to change the needle size, but I definitely know I need to change the gauge or the stitch count. So I decided I'm going to try this on a 2.25 circular needle because I know that I knit tighter on a circular needle, a 9-inch circular needle. And I honestly like a tighter gauge than what the 2.25 gives me. And that simple change made it so I don't have this thick, like spiraling pooling. Yes, on camera, it looks like there are some stripes going on here, but you don't see that at all in person, that's just camera life. And here's the foot. So we have these gorgeous contrasting colors here. And I just think they're so perfect. And knitting this sock has brought me so much joy. So I knit the cuff on 2.25 on double points. Then I did circular. Then I went to a double point again to do the heel. Then I changed immediately to circular for the gusset and the foot. And then once I got to the toe decreases, I changed back to double points. And that was fine. Even though my gauge is different, just for the heel and the toe, it didn't mess anything up, like as far as gauge wise, or make it way too massive while I was knitting those things. So then I cast on my second sock, and this one didn't have any strange pooling. It kind of pools the same way as the other sock did with those little stripes here. And now I'm just continuing knitting on the 9-inch circulars, and they're a lot of fun. I think I enjoy knitting on double points better. I know I enjoy it, but this is still kind of a nice change. And there's something, I don't know, there's something neat about knitting on circulars. I'm sure those of you who knit on circulars and maybe knit on double points or see people knitting on double points feel like there's something neat or magical about that as well. And that's how I feel every time I see this sitting in my basket. It just looks so little and delicate, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So I put it in this cute little basket. I have most of my projects in baskets, actually. We used to sell these in the shop. We don't anymore. So sorry. I love them. But yeah, they just make me so happy. I also do use project bags, but in this basket, I have one of our charm keepers. We finally sell these in the shop. We've always sold them in our kits previously, but a lot of you have wanted them on their own. So we'll still offer them in kits from time to time, but here is just one of the colors. We have blue, pink, mauve, gray, and translucent, like a clear, like this one. And I just think they're so much fun. They make a fun little noise. You can organize your progress keepers in here. I also have stitch markers in here. And yeah, I usually kind of change them from season to season. So super fun to keep in that knitting project basket. So that is everything that I have been working on these past 2 weeks. We finally have cool weather these past 2 weeks. I am so happy that you came to join me as I sat here and chatted about all the things that I have been knitting on, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all soon. Cheers to a good rest of your day, and I hope that your coffee or whatever you are drinking is still warm.